Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Story Time with Poppop. Today's book's going to be Mr. Sniff and the Motel Mystery. Mr. Sniff was reading a newspaper by the motel pool. Suddenly he heard someone cry, "Help! Help!" Mr. Sniff was on his feet. Whoops, sorry about that. Almost forgot to show you the picture, didn't I? "Come quickly," called the guest in room 17. Mr. Sniff followed her inside. Someone had written "Help, help" all over the bathroom mirror. Lipstick," he said. Mr. Sniff tasted the letters. "I wonder what kind it is." "And this little fellow," said Mr. Sniff, "should be in the mud or by some rocks, not on your shirt." He picked up a small spider crab off the lady's shoulder. "Someone wants to frighten me," said the guest. Just then Mr. Mutt, the owner of the motel, rushed in. "What is the trouble, Madam Bassett?" he asked. Suddenly they heard shouts outside. "Now what?" said Mr. Smut. "Let us see," said Mr. Sniff. Here's Mr. Smut. Many guests were standing around the motel pool. A 10-inch jellyfish was swimming back and forth in the water. You see the jellyfish right here? "This is too much," said Mr. Mutt. Who could have put it in the pool? All my guests will leave. I will lose my business. Mr. Sniff, please help me." "You are my friend, Herman," said Mr. Sniff. "I will begin at once." "Can I help?" asked Andy Mutt. "I know where everything is." Andy was Mr. Mutt's youngest son. "Very well," said Mr. Sniff. "I will need keys to all the rooms." "Jill has all the keys," said Andy. "She is the summer maid. Let us go and see her," said Mr. Sniff. There's Mr. Sniff and Andy Mutt. They found Joe by the soda machine. "Hi," said Andy. "This is Mr. Sniff. He is a detective. He is on a case. He needs the keys to all the rooms." "Hey there," said Jill. "Thank you," said Mr. Sniff. Jill sneezed and took a pill from her pocket. She drank it down with some soda. Mr. Sniff and Andy went up the stairs to the second floor. They knocked on the door to room 21. "Excuse me, I am Mr. Sniff. I am a detective. I am working on a case." "May we come in?" "Yes, of course," said the guest in room 21. "I am Sergeant O'Hound. I am a policeman. I am on vacation." Mr. Sniff looked all over the room. Then he looked at the bed. He said. "The top half is thicker than the lower half." He pulled back the blanket and sheet. "There's only one sheet. Someone has folded it over, so you can't get in." "Who makes the beds, Andy?" "Jill does," said Andy. Sergeant O'Hound sneezed. "Sorry," he said. "It is my hay fever." Mr. Sniff looked at the flowers on the table. "Andy," he said, "are there flowers in every room?" "I think so," said Andy. "Mother buys them at the farm market." "Some of them, at least," said Mr. Sniff. He gave Andy some flowers. "Take these with you, please." "Thank you for the trouble, Sergeant. Have a good vacation." Mr. Sniff and Andy went into many rooms. If the guests were out, Mr. Sniff opened the door with one of Jill's keys. He was careful not to disturb anything. At last, they came to room 13. "This is our room," said Andy, "and these are my brothers. Wolf and Garrison are twins. And this is Bill. He is the oldest." "How do you do?" said Mr. Sniff. He looked around the room. Mr. Sniff picked up a plastic stick-like thing. He said to himself, "I wonder what this is for." Then he turned to Andy. "Where do you sleep?" he asked. "I sleep in the top bunk," said Andy. "It is very hot. I sometimes sleep outside under a tree." Mr. Sniff looked at his watch. "It is late," he said. "The tide is rising. I am going for a swim." "Can I come with you?" asked Andy. "Please do," said Mr. Sniff. "I will meet you at the beach." Mr. Sniff put down his umbrella, his chair, and his towel. "I am ready," said Mr. Sniff. He and Andy ran into the water. A swimmer with white curly hair floated by on a tube. "Afternoon," the swimmer said. "Dr. Small is the name. Staying up at Mutt's Motel, are you?" "Yes," said Mr. Sniff. There they all are in the water together at the beach. "Have you seen the green slimy thing?" asked Dr. Small. "Why, no," said Mr. Sniff. "It comes by my window every night," said Dr. Small. "Scares some people. Green, shiny face. Hair like wet snakes. But when I call, it goes away and hides." "Very interesting," said Mr. Sniff. After his swim, Mr. Sniff went back to his umbrella and put lotion on his nose. "Let us take a walk, Andy," he said. Andy and Mr. Sniff walked along the beach. They did not talk much. Finally, Andy asked, "Would you like some bubble gum?" "No, thank you," said Mr. Sniff. He was standing in the water looking down. "What are these?" Andy asked Mr. Sniff. "Mole crabs," Andy said. "When the waves wash over them, they put their antennas up through the sand to catch their food." "Very clever," said Mr. Sniff. He and Andy took another swim. Then Mr. Sniff went into the office of Mutt's Motel. "Hello, Hilda," he said to Mrs. Mutt. "May I see your lipstick?" "Here it is," said Mr. Mutt. Mr. Sniff tasted it. "Very pretty color," he said. Just then the door opened. Some new guests came into the office. The baby hit the call bell. It did not ring. Mr. Sniff turned the bell over and felt inside. "Of course," he said. "The case is solved. I will tell you how tonight. Please ask all your guests to come to the beach at 9 o'clock, and ask your boys to make a fire." The moon was full. Madam Bassett, Sergeant O'Hound, Dr. Small, and all the other guests were on the beach. Jill came with her boyfriend. Wolf and Garrison, Bill and Andy made a huge fire. "Where's Mr. Sniff?" asked Mr. Mutt. "Here," cried a voice. "That is it," shouted Dr. Small. "A shiny green head." A shiny green head with hair like wet black snakes was coming toward them. It glowed in the dark. "It is a wonder," said Mr. Sniff, "what a plastic light stick and some seaweed can do. You snap it in the middle and shake it up a little, and it starts to light. People use them on the roads at night when their cars stall or just for fun." It had the letter A written on it. I found one in the boys' room. Andy hung his head. Mr. Sniff put his arm around Andy's shoulder. "Andy," said Mrs. Mutt, "did you do all those things?" "Yes," said Andy. "But how did you find out, Mr. Sniff?" "First, I asked myself who could have done it," said Mr. Sniff. "Jill could have. She makes the beds. Sergeant O'Hound's bed was tricked. Mrs. Mutt could have. She wears smooch. The lipstick on Madame Bassett's bathroom mirror was smooch. I tasted it myself. In fact, all the Mutts could have done it. They all know where the keys are. Next I asked myself, who could not have done these things? I found yellow ragweed mixed in with the flowers in many rooms. Someone who does not get hay fever put it there. Jill, you get hay fever. I saw you take a pill, so I did not think it could be you." "How did you know it was Andy?" asked Mr. Mutt. "It had to be someone," said Mr. Sniff, "who does not get hay fever, who knows where to find lipstick, who is not afraid of spider crabs or jellyfish, and someone who likes to play with light sticks. Then I found bubble gum inside the bell in the office. Someone put it there so it would not ring. Only Andy chews bubble gum. The case was solved." Oh, Andy did it. No wonder he wanted to help. "Why did Andy write 'help, help' on my mirror?" Madame Bassett asked. "Because he wanted help. Mutt's motel is all filled up. Andy has to sleep in the top bunk. It's very hot there. Sometimes he sleeps under a tree outside. Room 13 is very small for 4 growing boys." "I am sorry," said Andy. Mrs. Mutt hugged Andy. "As soon as we can," said Mr. Mutt, "we will give each of you boys a room of your own." "Wonderful," said Madame Bassett. "Families are important," said Sergeant O'Hound. "Now," said Mr. Mutt, "marshmallows for everyone," Mr. Sniff said. "Not for me, thank you. I want to watch the ghost crabs in the sand. They only come out at night, so I will say good night." Andy followed Mr. Sniff. He took him by his hand. "Thank you, Mr. Sniff," he said. "I'm glad you are my friend." So the moral of this story is, looks like Andy wanted some attention. He needed to ask his parents something, but he didn't know how. So he made up all of this controversy to get some attention. Sometimes we do that too. But it's better off to just let your parents know what you need. They can get it for you quicker and without a lot of trouble. Talk to you later. Love you.